It is Tuesday, and it is time for 10 with Tim. We are going verse by verse through the Gospel of Matthew, and we are about to finish the Gospel of Matthew. We'll finish it tomorrow, actually, and we'll talk about what comes next. I am so happy to be in the Word of God with you today, and especially in this passage. I need this passage today. It's resurrection. We're talking about the resurrection of Jesus, and I am preaching a funeral today. I just got a text from a friend who doesn't expect his brother to last through the morning. I have a funeral on Sunday. I've just been preaching funeral after funeral after funeral, not complaining. It is a privilege and a blessing to be a pastor. It is an amazing honor for me. Anytime somebody has lived their whole life, to be the one that at the end of someone's life to be called upon to say some words, as they are put into the ground, that's a tremendous honor and responsibility. But honestly, sometimes tiresome is not the word, but sometimes it's hard to have something to say. And sometimes I myself, just find death overwhelming. And today's passage just reminds me, why it is as Christians we don't grieve as others do who have no hope. And if I ever think that I'm running out of things to say, my goodness, it's the news from Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 to 15, where we are this morning. So jump in with me. Look at this passage. Let your heart be lifted today by the good news of the resurrection. First off, let me say this. I mentioned the women the last couple of days. It's the women who tie these stories together, the death, the burial, the resurrection, because they are witnesses. They are present, and they will ultimately be the primary witnesses to the resurrection itself. That's what we read today. What I didn't mention is just that question. It's Mary and the other Mary, and then the mother of James and John, the sons of Zebedee. Mary and the other Mary, the other Mary, that's peculiar. She's in chapter 27, where we were the other day. Was it yesterday or Friday? It says Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, in chapter 27, verse 56. The mother of James and Joseph. That's really interesting, but because in, chapter 13, where we encounter the brothers of Jesus, the sisters and Mary. The brothers are named, and among those are James and Joseph. James, it just makes perfect sense that we're talking about the mother of Jesus here, Mary. She's the most famous Mary of all. But why it is at this moment, if we're talking about the mother of Jesus, James and Joseph being two of Jesus's brothers, why it is that Matthew would just call her, the other Mary, is just really kind of interesting. But it does seem to be Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jesus, who come to the tomb in Matthew chapter 28, verse 1. Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Mary Magdalene. I just find that really interesting. The other part of that is just to realize, this moment in time, especially from the perspective of the women. Once the Easter story, once the Passion narrative gets started, it moves at a frenzied pace, from the arrest in the garden, the multiple trials, the beating, the crucifixion itself, oh my goodness, just the brutal execution. And the fact that it just moves, the story just skates so quickly. And still, the Sabbath comes, kind of this silent moment in the middle, but now it's Sunday morning, and the women move right back into the rush, into the pace. But just think about their mindset here. They imagine, for the most part, that, of course, Jesus's life is over. Yes, he talked about the resurrection, but nobody could imagine that, even though Jesus said it. Our brains, our hearts just were not in any way prepared for this amazing, supreme miracle of God, that Jesus would be raised. So these women aren't going to the tomb to have Easter, understand? They're going to the tomb to care for a dead body. It's woman's work. And as we often say, a woman's work is never done. And so it's the women who rise early to get on with life, to get on with their work. And for them, it's this first day of life without Jesus. And the sorrow, the grief, the rock in the middle of your chest, the ache in the pit of your stomach, just the way grief is. And some of you know what grief is like. Teresa, whose husband will bury here today in just a few hours, Teresa said to me yesterday, it just feels like a dream and I can't wake up. It's like this terrible nightmare because it doesn't seem real, that he's gone. And the women at the tomb would say the same thing. It's just, how is this real? How is he gone? And what is my life about now? And what's going to happen next? And all they knew to do is get up and get busy with the work. And for them, the work involves, finishing the preparation of his body for burial. So they're going to the tomb, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jesus. And in verse 2, suddenly, like we've been saying, it just moves at this frenzied pace, and it does. All of a sudden, it's like, what's next? An earthquake and an angel whose face, is blinding flashes like lightning. I mean, the angel's appearance itself is so terrifying that the guards placed at the tomb, right? These are the guards there, to make sure nothing happens to the body of Jesus. Like, these are the big bad guards, who are here to make sure nothing happens. Well, as soon as something happens, they fall over. They just pass out. Are these your finest soldiers? They just collapse into a puddle, and so the women are here and the angel speaks to the women. Now, let's make a couple of things clear. The angel, the earthquake, the stone is rolled back, but the stone isn't rolled back to let Jesus out. That's sort of the point. He's not there. The stone is rolled back to reveal that the tomb is empty. And the empty tomb itself, understand, that's not the evidence. That's not the proof that he's alive. It's the proof that his body's not in the tomb, But there are explanations for that, as Matthew has already spoken to and speaks to again today in our passage. I mean, the empty tomb, the easiest explanation for that is the disciples stole the body, and that's the story they decide to tell the soldiers at the end of the story, just to make sure that their rear ends are covered, to make sure that there's no actual continuation of this movement. We'll just tell the lie that the disciples stole the body. So you can explain an empty tomb. It's the angel who says he's risen. He's risen now. Come and see the place where he lay. Now go and tell the disciples. Jesus will meet you in Galilee. Just go. And so again, this frenzied pace. It just continues. Now the women, are on this rush now to go tell the disciples. And as I say, the story just rolls and rolls and rolls. There's never a moment to stop until verse 9, and then they stop because Jesus appears to them. And I love it. The women ran quickly from the tomb. They were frightened, also filled with great joy. And as they rushed to give the disciples a message, Jesus met them and greeted them. I love this. This is what you need to remember and really notice about the Easter story. It's not the empty tomb. It's not the empty tomb that convinces people that he's alive. If that's all we had, obviously, that's easily explained away. It was the wrong tomb in the first place, or the disciples stole the body. No. The reason that we preach the Easter message is not that there's an empty tomb somewhere. It's that Jesus appeared alive. He appears to them. He meets them. He greets them. Jesus who was dead, Jesus who was buried, same Jesus now appears alive. It is the encounters with the living Christ that make the disciples know that he's alive. Do you see that? It's not that they heard or that they saw the empty tomb. Man, they meet the living Jesus. They see him. They talk to him. They touched him. And that's how they know. So now the women, don't be afraid. Go tell my brothers to leave for Galilee. They'll see me there. Now the race continues. The women continue on their way. As I say, at the end of this Now the guards have to come up with a story, and that's the story they decide to spread, that disciple stole the body. That's the best story they've got. That's the best story they've got. But we've got the best story, you all. He lives. He lives. It's not a message that you're supposed to just believe secondhand. And my feeling is, just having me tell you or having an Easter pageant at the church, that's not going to convince you either if you don't believe. Because the only real proof there is for you to encounter the living Christ. And at some point, He's going to show Himself to you. He will. He's going to block the path of your life like He blocks the path for the women. He's just going to show Himself to you and show Himself standing there. And that's the moment when you're going to have to make a decision. I mean, when He appears to you, it's like an earthquake. It's like the world gets turned upside down. And at that point, you have to decide, what does this mean? What is my life going to be from now on? The resurrection changes everything. If you've ever stood at the tomb, stood at an open grave and felt that sense of it's like a dream, it's like a bad dream, I just wish I could wake up, Well, Easter morning is like that for the women. It was all like a terrible dream, only it wasn't a dream. That was life. He was gone. He died. He was buried. But then the resurrection, it's like a new morning, a whole new day dawns, and you wake up from that and realize He's alive. And that changes everything. And that moment when you understand that Jesus lives, that He is risen from the dead and death itself is now undone. That changes everything. But more than that, you all, there is a morning that comes when we open our eyes on the other side of this life. We're going to wake up in the presence of Jesus, and at that point, all of this life, all of the sorrow, all of the sickness, all of the death, that's going to be like a dream. This life that they're slogging through right now, it's like, man, it feels like a dream that you can never wake up from. Well, one of these days, you're going to open your eyes on the other side of this life, and you're going to understand, man, we're going to be with the Lord forever. He lives. He lives, my sisters. He lives, my brothers. Come and see the place where He lay, Jesus said. Now go tell my brothers, Jesus says. Go tell them, I will see them in Galilee. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Come and see, go and tell. That's the feverish Easter message. And that is the purpose of our lives. Come see, meet Him, encounter Him, know that He lives, and then now go tell, because it is a message, believe you me, that the world is dying to hear. I love you guys. Tomorrow I'm going to finish up the Gospel of Matthew, start in verse 16, read through verses 20, and we'll close out tomorrow. I love you guys. Will you pray for me today? Not for me, but pray for all of those today who will have their hearts crushed with grief. Pray that they will know the power, the hope, the love that comes from the risen Christ. Pray that He will stand in their path today and give them hope. I love you all so much. I love you so much. This moment in this word today has changed everything for me, and I pray that it has changed everything for you. I'll see you tomorrow, you all. I love you so much. Have a good day.